Good morning. We're lacking a quorum that is 5 to 7 minutes out. And so we're going to go ahead and get started anyway with moving up our program report and a presentation from our marketing and community engagement report. Armando?
All right. Well, good morning, Chairman and fellow trustees. It's my pleasure to be able to provide an update on our marketing outreach for the last quarter. Let's see here, Craigie. That's not. All right, so happy to announce that we have launched a new service alert system for our riders. So this system allows our riders to subscribe for text-based or email-based alerts in real time once we determine that we have a service disruption or a detour is closed. So riders can build an account, sign up, and manage their own routes or favorite stops. So it's very specific and detailed to the level that they want to customize it. So special thank you to the team that's worked hard on this, developing it, and also to our marketing group for helping promote this. This was a vital part of our customer outreach during our recent weather disruptions. And to date, we've had over 7,500 people subscribe for our service alerts. Next, we've been busy at events and in the community. So our team recently was invited to participate at a Career Connect event at Goodwill for Central Oklahoma, helping connect job seekers with the possibilities of starting a career with Embark. We've also finished up the GeoBond engagement meetings in December and January. I'd like to extend a special thank you to our staff who participated in our Spanish language bond meeting. So that's going to be Veronica Luna Olivio, Gennaro Castellanos, and Teresa Treader. And then on the screen there, you'll see a view from inside our BRT bus. We participated in the MLK parade actually this February since it was rescheduled due to weather. And next, our esteemed Chip Nolan was invited by the International Council of Shopping Centers for the Oklahoma chapter to be on a panel representing transit at a recent event this week. And the panel covered a topic of the Oklahoma Playbook, Reinventing Retail, Culture, and Community. And Chip was a subject matter expert in speaking about transportation, the impact of Embark, and the revitalization of Oklahoma City, but also the future impact of RTA in the region and how transit plays a role in helping with economic development and growth. Rapid also was in the news. Had a busy December and January. As you recall, Rapid turned 1 in December. We celebrated with the plaque, a little bit of cake. We had a celebration at the Transit Center. And we also had a successful contest for our riders, providing them with free transit passes through our Enter to Win contest. In January, Rapid surpassed the 500,000 ridership mark. And then we were recognized for a ULI Impact Award. And so thanks to the trustees that were able to attend. In addition to being a nominee, we also were featured in their committee's intro video. And I'll share a small part of that next. Let's see. Craig's. Maybe? Anything you can do? Yeah. Should be better. Well, I apologize for having some technical difficulties, but we'll get that to you guys via email. In addition to achieving some milestones, we've also been busy helping some of our city teammates learn about Embark and the services that we provide. Recently, we teamed up and provided a behind-the-scenes tour for our new Assistant Director of Public Works, Brandon Bundy. We covered Rapid Northwest, headquarters tour, and also River Cruise facility and the streetcar maintenance facility. And additionally, the Embark Finance Division also hosted the Office of Municipal Budget, provided them again with a riding tour through the system to help them better understand the services that we provide to our community. As you recall, we released the results of our customer satisfaction survey. And so we did some public relations outreach in January behind that, and we had 4 published media stories and events. This is our director, Jesse, here on the Fox 25 News, promoting the outcomes and celebrating and informing the community of our customer satisfaction results. We also had coverage in the trade publications and locally through Free Press OKC. And that those media efforts earned a earned media value of just over $40,000 in publicity for Embark. Next, I'll shift gears to what our business development team has been working on to drive ridership, support our parking division, work on group pass sales, and leveraging some of our community partnerships. So on the screen, I won't go through all of them, but we've been working with different groups to try to provide solutions for their transportation needs. I'll just highlight the Martin Park is celebrating their 50th anniversary later this summer. And so we've been working with Parks and Recs Department to help them plan for their event and provide, explore the option of providing a overflow shuttle service for their celebration. And then we've also been leveraging our partnerships with our vendors. And so Houck Advertising, our advertising partner, introduced us and connected us with HTEO. They're advertising with us in Norman, but we're working with them to see about future activations in Norman, but also in Oklahoma City. So again, building on those relationships as we move forward. Wanted to highlight the success of our Thunder Game Day Park and Ride Shuttle. So to date, we've provided over 6,500 rides to fans who've been attending games. This shuttle runs from the Sheridan Walker Garage area on a bus. So the Rapid Note just denotes the bus that we're using from the garage area. And then we have a dedicated express streetcar that operates from the Myriad Garden stop to the arena stop, providing convenient front door service for Thunder fans. And so the fans have been very positive feedback on this service. And so we're working with the Thunder to continue this for the upcoming playoffs. Because of the great ridership, the Thunder fan engagement team also wanted to do some surprise and delight events this last February. And so we worked with them to identify a few key timeframes that they can, again, surprise their fans going to the game. And so these are just a couple of photos of the t-shirt giveaway. And then we also have branded Rumble signage at the, now at the Myriad Garden stop and also at the pickup location just across from the Sheridan Walker Garage. Again, back to ridership, I wanted to highlight our partnership with Visit OKC. During the last few months, we've been leveraging and building that relationship with them to have conferences that are in town better utilizing our streetcar agreement that we have in place with them. So to date, we've had 7 conventions take advantage of what we call the Show and Go badge program. And so that's yielded or led to over 11,000 streetcar riders for those visiting Oklahoma City. And just this week, Sam's Club was in town at the convention center and used our services for 3 days. And a highlight of the Downtown in December partnership, we, again, just a reminder, we provided free rides on the streetcar Friday, Saturday, Sundays from November 15th through January 5th. Total ridership during that period for the streetcar was 45,000. Of that ridership, 63% of that ridership was during the free fare weekend. So we made an impact of just under 29,000 riders that took advantage of the free fare weekend. As part of the partnership, we had an activation at our Broadway booth, Lights on Broadway booth, and we had over 200 visitors here, provided them with some refreshments and swag and some little, it's hard to see, but some custom antlers that were branded for the streetcar. We supported this initiative with social media campaign and also onboard signage on all of our streetcars. And then finally, Trustee Cooper, we were able to connect with SISU last week, and so the director and staff and I went out and visited with their staff to better learn how we can serve their needs that they have and provide them with options to better utilize Embark and our services. So we committed to working with them to provide a train-the-trainer presentation for their staff to better educate their clients, streamlining and improving the hall pass registration process, and again, making sure they have customer information such as route schedule, system maps to again help them provide better information to their clients. And then in closing, what you can look forward to the next update is our free rides for Festival of the Arts, also support of the Oklahoma City Marathon, our upcoming Women's College World Series shuttle. The river cruise season is amongst us, and so we'll provide an update on that in addition to the FAM landing, and then also the work that we're doing to improve the Embark Connect app related to our new scheduling software for Mobility Plus. So with that, I'll take any questions if you have any.
Are there any questions or comments?
Yeah, well, thanks for visiting, of course, with Sisu and for all the work, and congrats on especially, I think, those Thunder events. That's probably introducing a lot of choice riders to the service in some really, I think, clever ways. Could you all clarify for me the Hall Pass program? My memory is it went up to 18, but I know we were having conversations about possibly expanding that to students, period. Did that happen? Okay.
No, that hasn't happened yet. That would be a policy change and an item that we'd bring to the board.
Okay. Okay, I'll just leave it at that for now.
Okay,
All
thank
right,
you
thank you,
very
sir.
much, Armando. We now have a quorum, so I'll call the meeting to order, and the first item on the agenda is a resolution recognizing and commending Laura A. Johnson for her service to the Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority. So, Jesse?
All right, well, I will read our resolution, and pleased to do so. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority, in recognition and profound appreciation of the distinguished service by Laura A. Johnson, and whereas Laura A. Johnson served on the COPTA board as a finance director beginning in 2007, and whereas Ms. Johnson was appointed as city manager surrogate on the COPTA board from September 2nd, 2011 to October 4th, 2024, and provided invaluable wisdom, guidance, and expertise to the board and the residents of Central Oklahoma. And whereas during Ms. Johnson's service, the trust began doing business as Embark in 2014, a parent brand uniting its multimodal public transit and parking services. And whereas during Ms. Johnson's service, Embark launched the Smokies Bike Share in 2012, constructed the Arts District Garage in 2014, opened the Oklahoma City Streetcar in 2018, expanded fixed route bus service to Sundays and holidays in 2019, opened the Convention Center Garage in 2021, and launched the Rapid Northwest Bus Rapid Transit in 2023. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the trustees of the Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority that they do hereby recognize the distinguished service of Laura A. Johnson.
Okay, there's been a resolution. Is there a motion and a second? It's been moved and seconded. If you would please vote electronically, and would you cast my vote yay or yes? Motion passes. Congratulations, Laura. Just to say a few words here. Gosh, I didn't realize it was 17 years, but thank you for all of your service. For me personally, because you added a lot to our trustee meetings every month, so we appreciate you very much. And enjoy your retirement. I've tried it for a few years. You maybe would want to volunteer for some boards or something, and I think there's an opening here if the mayor would be so inclined, and you would be so inclined, and you're not at the beach or someplace enjoying yourself. So we'd like to see you come back often.
Thank you.
So we have a plaque. Thank you for being part of our journey. To Laura Johnson, surrogate trustee, actually trustee as a finance director, and then a surrogate trustee, but 17 years. So congratulations again.
Thank
Do we
you.
want to take a picture of?
Sure. Do that. I don't know, maybe this makes some sort of bad reflection, so let me know. Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you.
Okay, and there's also a copy of the resolution that was passed this morning.
Thank you.
for you. Would you like to say a few words?
I would.
Okay.
I'm sure no one will be surprised that I would. It's like asking Councilman Cooper if he'd like to say a few words. He's my role model. Well, first, thanks for voting yes. I appreciate that. Thanks for moving and seconding. I appreciate that. My service to COTPA was actually longer than that. It started back in probably 30 years ago when COTPA was still in Bricktown, in an old warehouse. I was the surrogate for the finance director before the trust was changed to not allow a surrogate for the finance director. Sorry about you, Brent. But, we have come so far as a city, as a trust, with public transportation. And that couldn't have happened without you, the staff, without our residents requesting and demanding more public transit, and without you as a trust. And so I just want to express my appreciation for all that you do. It's easy for me to show up. I get paid to be here. But everybody who serves on this trust doesn't get paid to be here. And so we owe a special debt of gratitude to people like you, Barney, who show up dependably, regularly, and with a servant's heart to serve our community. So thank you for that. We've done so many things. We've added so much service: night service, weekend service, holiday service, BRT, streetcar. We've sold some parking garages. We've built some parking garages. Really, it's easy to get tied up in the day-to-day and same things happening all the time, but we've really made a lot of changes in our service levels, in our community. And Dr. Dillon's not here, but I especially appreciate those senior services at this point in my life. So thank you all very much, and thank you for the recognition. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You have a standing ovation.
Mr. Chairman, are you accepting any comments from the trustees on this? So I'd like to go first. Then. So I could say a lot, but I'll keep it real quick. So one of the things that probably nobody up here or in the staff knows, but I reminded Laura constantly that she could be a transit director. Every time we would bring forth some type of initiative, idea, and sometimes we didn't even bring anything forward. She would just call me or text me and say, "Hey, what about?" Or "I've seen this." And so I know we talked about some really big projects that Laura was involved in, but there's so many small things that made our trust and our system better that she contributed to on a daily basis. I learned a lot from Laura's transit expertise.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I've had the privilege of working with Laura for 31 of my 33 years with the city, and in some form or fashion. And the only way I like to describe, she's a mentor to people, she's a coach, she's an advocate, she's an encourager, and she's a pioneer too for women in public service here in Oklahoma City. And I think that's very admirable how she's started the Willow program, and she is a great encourager. And if you work for her directly, she'll kick you in the rear end sometimes when you need it. And that's what you need sometimes. Coaches aren't always telling you the good things, they tell you what you need to work on. And I appreciate you so much for that. And at the end of the day, you're family. So, and I appreciate you, and I wish you the best.
Good. Okay. Anybody else? Yeah.
Yeah, I too will be brief. So in the book of Genesis, no, I'm kidding. That's right. Thank you. Like those dad jokes? No, I've said this before, but rather than like a lofty, rhetorical speech, I'll just get the basics, which was when I lost that first election, and I didn't even know we had a public transportation board, but I was advocating for a better connected city, and met with Mayor Cornett and had coffee, didn't know the man, and just said, if I can ever be of any help with public transportation or public education, let me know. And he said, be careful what you wish for. And I said, did the mayor just threaten me? And is that how this works? You know, I've seen The Sopranos. And so a week later, he calls and says, do you want to be on the Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority? And I was like, I have no idea what that is. And next thing I know, I'm meeting Jason, I'm meeting Chairman Kaufman, and they're explaining how the agenda works. And it was like a baptism by fire. And then Laura Johnson, just the first meeting, before the meeting even began, she's like, I'd like to talk to you in my office afterwards. And it was my campaign manager and my best friend Aaron, and he went with me to Laura's office, and she just made herself available to us. She said, welcome to Oklahoma City government, and whatever you need, within reason, let me know. And so it really was this kind of like introduction, not to government, but to Brentsworth's family. It was just this very warm embrace. And I always remember that. That was my introduction to city government. And if you've been like that with the rest of the people who work here, then we should all count ourselves so lucky. So you've just been a really great mentor along the way. And I just really appreciate not just your service as it relates to me and this board, but to all the employees and to the city of OKC. So.
Okay. Steve, you want?
I guess I can't let Cooper have the last word.
Ward 2.
Ward 2, yeah, Ward 2 in the house. Just wanted, Laura's a good friend, has been a good friend, has done an amazing job in every capacity at the city, including this board. And just wanted to say how much I appreciate your friendship and how much I appreciate the work you've done for the city. So thank you very much.
Okay. Well, thank you all. Thank you, Laura, for being here and being a part of us for so long. And please come back often. Okay, we're going to move on in our agenda. There is one resident to be heard. I think Larry Hopper is going to speak to us for a minute under items from residents to be heard. Hi, Larry.
About the Route 15 and 19, and I have this terrible handwriting, so you probably couldn't read that, okay? Hey, my name's Larry Hopper. I live here in Oklahoma City. And the Top Spring initiative of the APT 501c3 nonprofit is basically trying to find a way to improve the routes 15 and 19. These are the ones that go out to Midwest City and Spencer. I'm here with some of our board members from the Alliance for Public Transportation, Jordan Davis and Lauren Keller. Some others may be coming, maybe not. Hey, some of you know me as the planning director for Embark for over 20 years. And in retirement and as a stage 4 cancer fighter, I'm trying to be of service to the community on important matters. So that makes me have a bias for action, okay? Do things sooner than later. And so the Route 15 and 19 issue has become one. Last summer, the APT identified issues it would like to try to wrestle with, and this came out as like one of the top 3, and we thought, this is basically shouldn't be a real difficult matter. It's Midwest City and Oklahoma City and Rose State. But, it's really a lot more complicated as it's turned out in terms of a lot of things, okay? In fact, the representatives for those areas, 15 and 19, they're basically still running for election, as it turns out. So some of us recently rode the 15, and we spoke to passengers. And in case you haven't remembered, the Route 15 runs every 80 minutes, okay? And when the apparent Embark standard is every half hour for almost all the routes in the system. The 19, it runs only every hour, but it has that 3 or 4 hour gap in the middle of the day. No other route seems to have that. So it's really about time that Embark would kind of collaborate with people to fix both routes. Just so you know, I can't think of a polite way to put this, but Embark staff has really failed to appear at our work group meeting with about 8 other entities, and we haven't even really been acknowledged on our emails. And based on what I've heard, it's been about 8 or 10 communications. And we really think this is really acceptable. But on Monday we meet again, so you're invited, okay, again. Really like to have you there. The APT nonprofit is here to help transit and to facilitate some difficult conversations. So, a lot of your customers in Spencer and Oklahoma City and Midwest City, especially those customers that are traditionally considered to be minorities, well, they're suffering under those two routes. And also, the Alliance for Public Transportation has seen how the Route 15, as it currently runs, it runs sort of a figure-8 pattern in Midwest City and sort of a zigzag pattern, and there may be some efficiencies that can come from that. Now, we recognize that the City of Oklahoma City funds half of the routes 19 and 15, and that basically Midwest City or Oklahoma County are the other funders of the other halves. We also recognize that in the OKC Moves plan, which followed by Embark, it recommends combining both routes, which really seems like a good idea, but it's challenging. If so, that would mean that a second bus is available that could make that combined route about twice as frequent, whether it's all day or even just for 3 or 4 hours in the morning to get people where they need to be. I mean, nobody wants to get to work 70 minutes early, okay, because the bus only runs every 80. But, make it to where it could be more frequent all or part of the day as it may be a 1 or 2 year project, pilot project or a trial. So what APT would really welcome is at least a 4-way conversation, APT, Embark, Midwest City, and Oklahoma County. And at Monday's meeting, we'd like for Embark staff to be present, I'm just about finished here, to share with us the latest Embark internal thoughts about the future of the routes 15 and 19, what staff is tentatively thinking, recommending for funding in the upcoming year, and what conversations they may have had about the Route 19's future, because that's kind of a complicated issue right now, and what staff thinks about our new routing idea. So in conclusion, we think Embark needs to be part of this APT process with the entities that are already involved, and we thank you a lot for letting us make these comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Jesse, do you want to make any comments, or?
No. How about now? Yep. No, I appreciate Larry being here, and look forward to communication.
Okay, we appreciate you. Thank you. Okay, are there any other residents to be heard? Okay. Then we'll move on to approval of the minutes of the February 7th, 2025 COPTA board meeting. Is there a motion to approve? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Item 5 is our consent docket. There are 3 items on it. Are there any items that any of the trustees would like to consider individually? If not, is there a motion to approve our consent docket? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Item 4 is items for individual consideration. The first one is to approve plans and specifications for the Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority parking garage inspection and repairs, and authorize the administrator to advertise for bids. Jesse?
Yep, thank you. So this item is, if you remember back in January of this year, our staff brought an item to essentially the Kirkpatrick Forest and Curtis Engineering report that identified some repairs that needed to be taken place in our off-street parking garages. So this item takes that report and has put them into a set of bid documents, so bid specs and engineered drawings. And we're asking to put this out on the street to receive bids to do those repairs. And a reminder of those repairs, so it's set up as a base bid that would include repairs to the beams, decks, staircases, and fireproofing corrosion, but it also includes some priority 1 and priority 2 repairs that include general maintenance work, such as facade repairs, concrete patching, and crack injection. So if that's like your joints between the concrete slabs, coming in and repairing those.
Okay, are there any comments or questions? I think this is an item that we need to continue to move forward as our garages continue to age. So is there a motion to approve item A? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Item B is to approve the parking lease agreement with Invest Trust as trustee of the Parham Gorham Family Trust for the premises located at 426 Northwest 5th Street in Oklahoma City, estimated annual cost of $16,800 from April 1st, 2025 through March 31st, 2030. So, Jesse?
Yep, yeah, so this is a continued lease agreement, as this mentioned. So we began this back in 2013. And then just to help everyone kind of get oriented, so our downtown transit center is bordered by Hudson on the east, Northwest 4th on the south, and Northwest 5th on the north side of the transit center. This parking lot is just to the west of the transit center. It's a small parking lot for about 12 to 13 cars. We've been using that for staff parking for folks that work at the transit center, customer service folks that work in the bubble there. But we've had this agreement in place for the last 12 years, and we're looking to continue that agreement.
Okay. Are there any comments or questions about this item? If not, is there a motion to approve? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Okay, item C is the adopt a resolution approving the 2025 Title VI program updates. And I think Chip is going to give us a short review of this.
Good morning. My name is Chip Nolan. I'm here to talk to you about our Title VI program today. So this is first talking about what is Title VI, what's in the plan, and why am I bringing this to you today. So first, what is it? This comes out of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that says we will not discriminate based on race, color, or national origin. And in 1994, there's an executive order extending some of those same protections to individuals with low income. And then kind of after that, the Federal Transit Administration has what they call circulars. It's administrative guidance on how to carry out, how to advise transit agencies on how to carry out and implement the law. That's Circular 4702.1b, and the requirements in that circular are what we're talking about today. So it's really summarizing your activity, your service changes over the last 3-year period. So we turn this into the Federal Transit Administration every 3 years, telling them what service changes we made and what service equity or fair equity analysis we did with those service changes, making sure that we're still in compliance with our Title VI, with the Title VI program. So some things that are included, we have this Title VI notice you've probably seen at our facilities and on our buses. It advises people how to contact us to file a Title VI complaint. And then it's in our Title VI languages. So there's specific metrics for your metro on what languages you have to translate into. For us, that is Spanish, Vietnamese, and Chinese. So all of our Title VI notices are translated into those languages. And then there's specific requirements for fixed route agencies. So some of those is just kind of monitoring your service standards and how you're delivering your service, and then collecting some demographic data. So this is our service area. We have the city of Oklahoma City, and then so we're grabbing some areas outside of Oklahoma City. We're extending to other communities like 15 and 19. And then for agencies of a certain size, if you have more than 50 buses in peak service, you have some additional requirements that you have to report and policies that you have to follow. So here's a map of our minority population by census block group for our service area. Here's our low income population. And this is what we define as a major service change. So when we do a service change that meets this threshold, we go through what we call a service equity analysis to make sure that the impact of those service changes are not intentionally or unintentionally having a disproportionate effect on minority or low income groups. So that is if you're adding a new route or removing an existing route, or you're modifying a route by more than 25% of its hours or miles, meet that threshold of a major service change. Obviously, we look at the impacts of any service change, but once you trigger this threshold of a major service change, that requires some extra steps in this plan, like having some community meetings, having formal board approval, and going through the service equity analysis process.
Hey, Chip,
Yes.
when you mentioned we have decided 25% more, you know, is the kind of the threshold, can you remind us, is that a staff decision or has the board actually approved like major service change policy? Is
So
it
this
board
was-
or staff?
So this was
driven?
part of our, this is within the Title VI program that we update every 3 years. We met this threshold, we met this 50 bus threshold, I think 2 cycles ago, and so this was a standard that the board approved, I think it would have been 6 years ago in that Title VI program update, was in that program. And we looked at lots of agency policies and programs. This is pretty standard for what transit agencies define as a major service change.
Thank you.
So again, we talk about disparate impact and disproportionate burden. So this is just saying that we are looking at when you have a service change, are you intentionally or unintentionally having an impact, negative impact on minority or low-income populations. And this is just defining what that threshold is, and we're just saying that if we have a service change that may have some sort of negative impact, there's some things we have to do. We have to look at ways to mitigate that service change. We have to have a very compelling case to move forward with it, or we have to retract the service change. So in this service change, we're looking at the past 3-year period. Really the biggest one that we're talking about is the launch of the Northwest Rapid and the OKC Moves, when we made adjustments to all of our local services as part of the launch of the Northwest Rapid line. And we also did a fare equity analysis as part of establishing the BRT fare. And then we did not find any violation of that disparate impact or disproportionate burden as part of that analysis. So overall benefit to the community, and we didn't have anything that we had to adjust or mitigate as part of that service change proposal. So we're asking that you adopt the resolution so that we can submit this program update to the FTA and stay in compliance with their Title VI rules and requirements. And I can try to answer any questions that you might have about what I talked about today.
Okay, are there any questions or comments about this update?
Can you go back to the slide, the low income map,
Maybe.
please? Maybe. Just wanted to have a look at that. Oh no, I broke it. That's my
See if I can
question.
figure this out. There we go.
Okay. Can I have a copy of this? Can the Ward 2 office have a copy of this? Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And I'll tell you why. I'm thinking a lot about where the youth centers are going to be going in maps 4, and I'm seeing here that when you look at South OKC, for instance, or you look over here along 10th and Reno, and around the Melrose area, that corresponds with a lot of crime associated to youth. And so I'm just wondering the role that public transportation can end up playing here in combating
Yep.
poverty and crime
Absolutely.
together. So I'd like to dig deeper, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank staff for keeping this plan up to date. I know it's something that isn't done routinely on an annual basis, and so it's a little bit of a lift to get it updated, and also certainly has implications with our triennial review and good standing with the FTA, not to mention the fact that it just includes a lot of important things we should be considering and doing as a trust. So thanks for your work and making sure we're getting it updated and submitted as we need to.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chip. So is there a motion to adopt this resolution? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Item D is a resolution authorizing and directing the municipal councilor to prepare and file any and all necessary paperwork to effectuate settlement on behalf of COPTA without admitting liability in the claim of Ronald Smith and/or to go into executive session to discuss this with our attorneys. So do we need a motion and a vote to go into executive session? Can we do that individually rather than electronically?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Okay. So the trust will go into executive session and be back in a minute. Okay, the trust is back out of executive session, and so is there a motion to adopt the resolution, item D? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. We'll move on to ratification of claims and payroll for the period of February 1st through February 28th. Is there a motion to ratify? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Item 8 is receiving our financial reports for the revenue and expenses budget to actual for the month ending January 31st, 2025. Suzanne.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are y'all doing today? You're all excited for a financial update here. I bring my binder every month to make sure I have all the notes. So thanks for enduring my little humor there. So I will start with page 2 of the financial report, which is our transportation operations. So we're looking at 7 months worth of financial data, so a little over our halfway point of our year, month ending January 31st. So overall, in our transportation operations, our expenditures exceeded revenues by $611,000. Our year-to-date revenues were $25,805,000, which exceeds the budgeted revenue by 0.1%. So just right on budget with our revenues. And then our year-to-date expenditures were $26,417,000. And those were over budget by $130,000, which is 0.5%. So overall, pretty close to budget with our revenues and our expenditures. So I'd like to highlight a few revenue lines for you. I've kind of taken to really combining our fare revenue to give you the overall picture. So that's what I've done for you again this month. So if we look at our combined fare box and fare media sales, and we put them into one category, we're sitting at 5% behind what we had budgeted. So Farebox, that row there, we've got 152,000 negative variance, so it's showing a 25% variance. But really, if you factor in media sales, which we're seeing more and more trend towards the digital purchase of tickets or going to our transit center, we're actually making that up to be 5% behind budget. And if we look at prior year, we're actually 16% ahead of where we were at this time last year. So we are seeing an increase in our revenue overall for our fares, just a little bit lagging from what we had forecasted where we'd be at this point in time of the budget year. And then I've talked about this row quite a bit, the miscellaneous line. I don't know, in years past I've talked about miscellaneous so often, but I do want to just keep you all updated on this since it's such a significant variance. So in months past, this variance has been quite a bit higher. And I have mentioned to you this is due to the energy cap. It was inadvertently omitted from our budget, and so to correct that, some revenue was put into the transportation operation. And it was over $600,000, which created a very large variance. And I'd also mentioned to you in past reports that we would be looking at moving some of that revenue into the proper operating unit. So they put all of it in transportation, but some of it was meant for streetcar, for river, for parking, et cetera. So you'll notice that variance now has gone down. The variance is $300,000. And just to kind of break that down for you, we have left 380 of the energy cap that was 611 in transportation. And then we've moved 246,000 into streetcar, 81,000 into parking, 17,000 into river. So overall, excuse me, I gave you the wrong number at the very beginning. Overall, we'll remain with 240,000 in transportation. So 240 stays in transportation. So that, Trustee Bryan asked about a budget amendment last month. And I, at the time, didn't see that we might need that once it's all in transportation because there's some capacity to for that variance. But now that we have sorted it into other op units, I don't know that we will or not. We're looking at that, but I'm just seed planting that may require it in terms of budget authority for that change. So something we'll monitor and certainly bring that to you if that's needed. I will also just keep you up to date on federal grants. So you'll see there we are right on budget, right on target with our federal grants. And then I also wanted to mention to you the state government subsidy line right below that. So we're ahead of where we were last year, which just really is a timing thing. We're receiving the same amount of money from last year. There's an agreement with ODOT on when that timing of the revenue comes in, and so we just received another round. There's 3 payments in the year. So this reflects one payment. We just received a second payment, which will be reflected, I believe, in the March report. So in a couple months, you'll be seeing that revenue plugged into the report. So moving over to expenditures, how do we go back previous? There we go. Moving over to expenditures. So this is not really anything new that I've been talking about this for a while, but our personal services highlighted here, we are over budget by nearly $600,000, which is about 4% over budget. And like I mentioned last month, we are now 7 months into the year, which is 58%. We have budgeted 58% of our expense budget, and we've expended 60%. So there again, not a large percent variance from that perspective, but dollars-wise, $600,000 is certainly a significant number. The good news, though, when we look at it as a holistic overall view here, we see that we've got a lot of savings in other line items. And in fact, the payments to the City Transportation Fund, which is the negative $300,000 variance, that is a timing issue, just kind of some of the system issues with our new financial system, some of the timing on booking things gets a little bit off from what we've budgeted. So if you take that factor into consideration, we're actually under budget in that line item. And so overall, we are on target with where we projected to be this point in year, just about 0.5% over budget, but with savings from supplies being 10% below budget, fuel 35% below budget. If you combine that savings of supplies and fuel, you're at $655,000. So that is offsetting that overall expense on the personnel costs. I would just point out that we'll continue to monitor this. Personnel expenses are, of course, our largest expense in our budget, and so it's just an area that we have to always be very critically observant of to make sure that we don't run into any issues. So keep you posted on that. Parking operations, I'm just going to give you the highlights today. Overall revenues exceed expenditures by $1.5 million. Our overall revenues year to date are $4.2 million, and that exceeds our budget by $516,000, so 14% ahead of budget on our revenues. Our year-to-date expenditures in parking are $2.7 million. You'll notice that those are over budget by $66,000, 3%. And really, again, as I mentioned in the transportation slide, that is due to just some timing on the payment to the to the parking fund within the financial system. So if you factor that in, we're actually right on point with our expenses and parking. So river cruises, the revenues exceed expenditures by $100,000. Overall, the year-to-date revenues are $603,000, exceeding our budget by 6%, by about $33,000. And our year-to-date expenditures are $503,000, and those are under budget by $22,000 or 4%. So I mentioned earlier about energy cap, so I've highlighted for you here that River now has a miscellaneous row. You'll notice there's no budget in that column, the original budget total year, because we didn't have that budgeted. That, as I mentioned before, it was not in our budget. And so now the actual year-to-date of $17,000 that you see there, that is that transfer of energy cap, the revenue to pay for the energy cap in River. I also want to point out on the revenues that overall, when we look at, we're doing very well with our revenues. It's basically a positive variance all the way through, with the exception of the general fares. And I looked back at how we budgeted, how we put this budget together, and we were really pretty conservative with this budget. And so we're just trending ahead of what we thought in our being conservative with our fare collections, with charters, with cruises. We based it on some forecasting of FY24, how we thought we'd end the year. And so just to be conservative, we're looking at a conservative budget here. So that's why we're overperforming or outperforming what we had budgeted. So I could expect that would continue the rest of this year at this point. On the river cruise operations expenditure side, I wanted to point out a couple of things here. So the other services and fees, so you'll notice the variance there is quite large. It's showing that we're under budget by 45% or $9,000. Certainly don't want to get in the weeds on accounting with you, but basically there is a credit coming, or a credit rather, in this line item that's showing an expense that's much lower than it really is. So again, just kind of some accounting information here, but if you plug that back in, we're actually pretty much right on level with that expense line. So that savings will be corrected in the next, or excuse me, that will be corrected in the next report that you'll see. And then supplies, just, right now we're not operating the ferry boat in terms of just our regular operations. And so we expect supplies to start picking up as River comes online very soon. So again, no issues with our budget here, but just pointing that out as we've been kind of slow on expenses on supplies, we might see some pickup in that area coming up. And then finally, streetcar operations, which is page 7 of your report. Our revenues exceed expenditures by nearly $800,000. Our overall revenue year-to-date is $4.4 million, which exceeds our budget by about $230,000 or 6%. And our year-to-date expenditures are $3.6 million, and those are under budget by $480,000 or 12%. So just pointing out for you on the streetcar fares, you'll see that we are underperforming by 8% from where we thought we'd be this time in the year. However, we are looking at quite a good, healthy increase from prior year at about 9%, $5,447 ahead of where we were at last year. Streetcar fares, of course, are a pretty small portion of our overall revenue, so we are on track with that overall in our revenues. You'll see at the bottom there, we're ahead of where we had budgeted. So the other revenue line I've highlighted. So on this slide, it's other revenue, but that, again, that's the energy cap. So I had mentioned to you that we had put that and allocated it in the place where the expense was going to occur. I also want to point out to you, though, you'll see the $10,225. So I haven't really talked about this much in the financial report, but that is funding that has come from the city manager's office for the shuttle that Armando had presented on earlier. That shuttles are the Thunder ticket holders, to the Thunder games. And so when the Cox Garage closed, we worked with Thunder and city manager and Embark worked together to come up with a way to make sure we're getting the ticket holders safely to the Paycom Center, and then also leveraging another one of our garages. So they're parking at the Sheridan Walker Garage. So it really does keep our customers in-house, and also to Trustee Cooper's point, it allows for people to try our service that maybe ordinarily wouldn't do that. And so that $10,000 is really just helping us recoup our costs of providing that service, because it is a shuttle service. The Thunder does partner with us on that. They also have a part of that cost as well that they bear. Then over on the expense side of streetcar operations, I'll just be brief on this one, but the supply line I thought I'd point out to you, since we are 50% below budget, and really that boils down to a couple things. Largely, it is our spare parts, though. Spare parts we know are quite expensive for our streetcar, and you never know what's going to break down, so having a healthy budget there is very helpful. We have really just had some fortunate luck this year. Haven't had a lot of major repairs on our streetcar. We are gearing up for some preventative maintenance items with the battery cells, with the telemetrics, which is the dashboard, the dash for the operators. So we're doing some preventative work there. So we do project around $300,000 of those parts, but that still does put us pretty far under budget with our supplies as we speak right now, of course. So those are my comments on the financial report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I have one. On the energy cap, then, going forward, will we get revenue every year?
So two things. The revenue that we're seeing here, that is the full amount that we'll get this year, so they didn't parse it out over the months. And then in our next year's budget, it was corrected to then be in our base budget. So
Where does it go in the base budget?
the subsidy from the general fund.
Okay.
And so it's in that general fund subsidy, and then the expenses, of course, will also be budgeted. In this current, the FY25 budget, they were not included in the budget.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
And I'm sorry, would you explain the energy caps again for me?
Like how the energy cap works,
Thank
or
you.
the okay, I'm not an energy cap expert, but I'm going to do my best at explaining energy cap to you. I actually did research this a few months ago. I've got some notes here, but not having them at my fingertips, I'll do my best. But the energy cap, in summary, the city participates in a program that basically is trying to find savings by bringing the mass together. And so we get a better deal on the cost of energy when we look at it when we pay for it in a big picture concept. So with the city of Oklahoma City, they have a program manager who manages the energy cap and looks at those rates and those savings, and then they project what they think our costs are going to be based on our past energy needs, and then they subsidize that amount. Yeah, it's an interesting read.
Yeah.
It's just been a few months since I read about it, but any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay. Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thank you.
We appreciate it. So on item number 8, is there a motion to receive our financial reports? Get back. It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically.
I don't think it's me this time. I have a blank screen.
Motion passes. Okay, moving on to item 9 is our program reports, and we heard from the Marketing and Community Engagement report at the beginning of the meeting, so now item B is the presentation on the Parking Services report. Corey, good morning.
I feel like I'm providing a bedtime story. Boring for last. Thanks for approving the first individual item, allowing us to release the bids or the plans and specs for making those repairs to our world-class garages. Be brief, February was a slightly tough month due to God and the weather. For our Freeze Event 1, we had approximately 6 individuals that worked over a 48-hour period of time, keeping the parking garages free of ice and snow as best as one could. Event 2 was a 3-day adventure. We also installed these signs throughout our parking facilities just to remind people that parking garages are very much like bridges. They freeze first. Thus, be safe when you're walking on them. Like to point out, over the past 9 years, we've had 0 slip and falls reported in our parking facilities. Very pleased. Very pleased to announce that we no longer are responsible for a sky bridge. We sold the Santa Fe parking garage, the Skywalk agreement was entered into in '99, and then in '18, most of us know, we sold the Santa Fe parking garage to FSPG, and then earlier this month, or in February, the Sky Bridge was officially transferred to the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority. So staff is in the process of transitioning all those details over to that group. From an hourly and daily customer perspective, you can see we're very much like last year. We do continue to rely on our parking system, the automated parts of it, to assist with some of the smaller events taking place at the convention center. Instead of going out there and pre-collecting, we're allowing the system to do it. And we're charging our customers hourly instead of event, so it falls into this category. But the savings on labor is good. Event parking, again, we're seeing a small decrease in the quantity of event parkers because of the increase to the hourly and daily parking, formerly known as transient. And then our contract parkers remained fairly flat. These numbers do include the closing of the Cox Garage. The majority of those parkers were transferred into other facilities. So there shouldn't be any surprises there. We did lose some parkers. ASM, the firm that helps us manage those buildings, we lost a few of those parkers to competition, plain simple. We had capacity issues during events. That number was very small. With that, that concludes the last presentation, parking. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Any questions or comments? If not, thank you. Appreciate it. So is there a motion to receive our program reports? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Moving on to item 10, which is items from the trustee.
Yeah, just wanted to say thank you to one of our Embark staff workers, Jeremy, who visited with Oklahoma City University students on Wednesday for my English comp students for their rhetorical analysis essay 2. or they're having to apply ethos, pathos, and logos to understand how arguments work. They watched a series of documentaries and a film, and one of the documentaries was called Crip Camp. I don't know if you all have seen this. If you have not, especially for those of you who are big public transportation advocates, it's really worth your time. It's the history of the ADA and how it came to be, and starting in the 60s and 70s, these young kids who would go to this camp, children with disabilities, at a time when there were no protections for them, no accommodations, no conversation about accessibility. And those kids grow up to be the adults who advocate for the passing of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And one of the most powerful scenes I have ever seen in my entire life in anything, or just moments, it's captured footage, it's not a fictional moment, is when folk get out of their wheelchairs and their mobility devices and put their bodies onto the steps of Congress and will themselves, like pull their bodies, propel their bodies step by step by step up the steps of Congress to demonstrate the need for accessibility, accommodations. I showed this scene. Well, the students watched the documentary, and they're analyzing it for rhetoric. But I showed a clip to my world literature classes, because Jeremy actually didn't just visit with the English composition students, but he was having so much fun, and the students were so engaged with him that he stayed for the world literature classes, the two that I teach. And I showed since they had not watched the documentary, I showed that clip, and the students were just floored because they did not know the history of ADA. And I don't think that most people do. I did not really understand that history until watching that documentary. But the reason why Jeremy came to speak was because I ran into Jeremy. If you heard me on City Council a few weeks ago, or last week, you already heard me tell this story, but Jeremy lives on the south side of our city, uses Embark bus services, and in this instance, on a week ago Sunday, used the bus to get to downtown, transferred to the BRT, and then got off at 36th and Classen to go to the bookstore Bookish. And I just so happened to be there, like randomly was there, because I was doing a photo shoot to promote a film screening we were going to be doing there. And Jeremy was outside, and I saw him, and he was there to buy my book. I was like, oh my gosh. But the problem was the building wasn't ADA accessible, and so he could not get into the building. And the book was sold out. And so I asked him if he would be okay with me biking home from 36th to 38th in the Paseo, because I had a book there. And I was like, I'm sure you don't want to walk with me, so just give me a second. He goes, no, I'll walk with you. And so we walked from 36 and essentially Western, where the Boys and Girls Club is, Memorial Park, Bruno's Furniture, Guest Room Records, from 36 through Crown Heights Park, thank God for the bond to put the sidewalks in there. Because if we had not had those sidewalks there, how was this young man in a wheelchair going to get around? Then when we got, and this is important as we start thinking about the RTA, I just have such clarity and passion now in a way that you thought it was there before, but it's much more clear now and strong. Maps 4 put sidewalks in on Chartel in Crown Heights neighborhood. We had about a fourth of the neighbors fight us on that, by the way. And thankfully, the 3/4 of the neighbors in that neighborhood said, yeah, well, we're going to advocate for them. And so we put them in, and Jeremy used that sidewalk to get up to 36. But here's the bad news. There's no ADA when you get to 36th and Chartel. The sidewalk just ends. And so we had to double back onto the sidewalk, heading back north, go onto the street, into the bike lane, and I watched Jeremy wheel his wheelchair up Chartel in a bike lane that some residents have told me that that's enough. They don't need sidewalks. The bike lane will do. I will never hear that argument again after watching Jeremy in that bike lane. It's got to be bike lanes and it's got to be sidewalks. It's got to be both. He then, 36th Street, once we crossed on Chartel, there's fits and starts of sidewalks. And so we were once more in the bike lane. There are residents who've put boulders in the public right-of-way to prevent people from walking in their yard next to Harding Fine Arts School. I hope that the city of OKC, as we continue, I have not said this yet, and I want to know what we're going to be able to do about this, so I'm saying it to people who are in leadership right now. I hope as MAPS 4 is building the sidewalks continuing on Chartel, that those boulders go away. That's not right. Jeremy was shook when he saw, he couldn't even fathom that someone would do something like that. There was another yard just a little bit up the road. Someone had put rope in the public right-of-way to prevent someone from walking right there. That cannot be in accordance to ADA. There just cannot be. It was a level of like myopia and cruelty that I knew because I'd seen it, but being with someone in a wheelchair who had used our public transportation service to get to Ward 2, and by the way, he's used that public transportation service for years. Do you know he had never got off the stop to go into Ward 2 until that day? And this is what we had waiting for him. So it's good work with the bond, with the sidewalks in Crown Heights. It's good works with MAPS 4, putting the sidewalks on Chartel. Eventually, when you get to Harding Fine Arts, MAPS 4's Chartel sidewalks begin. And it was just a completely different experience for Jeremy the second he was able to use those sidewalks. So like I said, I've been kind of baptized now by ADA and the work we're doing as a board to improve our public transportation system, what we were lauding Assistant City Manager Johnson for earlier, those improvements. Those cannot just be statistics in our minds. They have really real world implications. And I think my end game here, now that I'm 10 years on this board, 10 years in public service, is the RTA. And I've already looked at places like Nashville where they're not just putting in their elections for the trains, they're saying choose how you move. It's sidewalks, it's bike lanes, it's public transportation together. It's everything this board knows in terms of first mile, last mile connectivity. And I hope as we head into that election that we think about someone leaving their house in a wheelchair or a mobility device, needing to get to work, recreation, or education, and how we can better connect them to those things so they're not homebound, so they can add more to our sales tax coffers as well when they're entering into the marketplace, when they can go to education to strengthen their certification skills or their degree skills so they can have more spending power in the marketplace. I will not stop talking. I will stop today talking about this, but I will not stop talking about this for the next 2 years. We can no longer just center able-bodied Oklahoma Cityans. This has to be a city for all of us. That's got to stop. And that Civil Rights Act in 1964 was the down payment. It was the down payment. So thanks for listening to that. And just thank you so much to Jeremy for coming to share his story with those students. They were enamored with him. And they literally, director and chairman, board, staff, they had questions for him after class. Like they had education majors who were like, tell me more. So the work you all are doing is so important, and the people you're hiring and bringing their experiences is invaluable. So thank you.
Steve?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to remind everyone that March 18th specifically is Transit Appreciation Day for all of the operators, maintenance staff, and so just want to make sure we were all aware of that and thank staff for what they do every day.
Yep, just two things. So first being second, watching that movie, Crip Camp. It is a fantastic documentary. And then the second item is I'd like to correct my earlier statement about the Hall Pass program. Staff did remind me that we have actually been doing that for a year now, for students specifically. Thinking behind that is, if you think about it, to use sports, a lot of folks will redshirt their kids, maybe hold their kids back. And so you could still be a student and be 19, right? So that's the thinking behind that. Thank you.
we'll need to talk offline a bit more about this, but when Jeremy was in the World Lit class, we showed that Embark video that Mayor Holt made of how to use the BRT. The first comment from a student with a disability was she thought OCU needed to show that video to every student the second they get on campus. And it was like, oh my God, of course. And so that's something I want to do, and I think that it's an opportunity for Embark to come out there to OCU at the start of, like a fall semester, but maybe it's not just OCU, and this is the offline conversation, you already know where I'm going with this, but I think, I can't speak for the other wards, but I'd at least like to start with the public and private high schools in Ward 2. I think at the start of a school year, it would make a lot of sense to bring the Rapid out there and figure out how can we demonstrate how to use this service. The students had basic questions like, where do you buy your ticket? By the way, I'm so sorry, Embark, I have really bad news. Almost 1 or 2 students in 4 classes had used the Rapid. It's 2 blocks from OCU, right? So that's got to be true for Cassidy and Northwest class, and so I think I need your help at the start of the next school year across Ward 2, and then maybe that creates a program for us where we can go out to the other wards should they want it, but we have a base of young people waiting for this service.
Okay. Well,
Can I have one final comment? No? Yes? All right, perfect. So this is Steve Hill's last board meeting also, so he is retiring. Yeah. Appreciate Steve and everything that he does.
yes,
Thank you.
we thank you for your 15 years of service as a surrogate to the mayor on our board, so thank you.
Thank you, old so-and-so.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we appreciate you all being here today and adding to our transit discussions. And with that, remember, tomorrow night you spring forward. It's daylight savings time.
Already tomorrow?
Yeah, so that affects transit, I think, probably in some of your scheduling. So anyway, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all for coming.